And I said, yes, I will come and speak to your group. We will have a Q&A. And I didn't really have a talk planned. All I had was a tiny little intro, and then you can ask me anything you want. That was my
Yep.
thing. So I just stood up there and let them ask me anything I wanted. And I have to admit, some of it I knew was going to be super easy because they were going to say stuff like, "Well, what about home socialization?" I'm like,
Yes,
oh,
yes.
gee, I never heard that one before. What do I?
Yep. Welcome to the Homeschool Connections podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin Zara, and I'm so glad you're spending some time with me today. New episodes drop every week, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. All right, mamas, grab your coffee, press play, and let's homeschool together. I am thrilled to welcome Susie Lloyd today, veteran homeschool mom of 7, beloved mother, mentor, speaker, author, and consultant in the Catholic homeschooling world. Today, she's here with us for a joyful then and now conversation about how homeschooling has transformed over the last few decades. Susie, welcome.
Nice to meet you, Caitlin.
It's so good to be here with you. And Susie, what a blessing to have homeschooled for 30 years.
Yep,
Wow.
yep. It's a way of life. I'm so glad I did it. That we did it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the key, right? So, Susie, what's one of the biggest challenges that you think you faced early on with your homeschooling journey that you think homeschoolers like me who are just starting out don't even think about?
Well, we do live in this paradise now, right? Okay. So, but honestly, the biggest challenge back then was just very little public support. And so you were always, you had to explain yourself to everybody and, or not. You had to build all your own resources. There were some resources. I don't want to say there weren't any, but there were very few. We were using some Protestant materials sometimes. You know, you did what you could, you pieced it together. And most of us live far away from each other. So some people are still actually in that situation. Not where I live now, though. Like, it's so different now. Like, we have a parish which is just booming with homeschoolers, and you can get friends just like that, whereas when I was starting out you had to find the other homeschoolers and you had to make friends with somebody and hope they had a friend, and then you built your network. And so the network building was really big back then. And so the takeaway for me would be so many wonderful things that we have now we had to build. Like, I co-founded our support group, I co-founded our co-op, and put on field trips and put on talent shows and did all these things. And I would say, keep doing that. Keep building. Because this isn't something that you just relax into and go, oh, isn't this great? We just have all this stuff. This is all human, God's grace, but also the human energy behind it. And it just isn't something that you just go, oh, isn't this nice? Like, I'm so glad we get to do this. You got to keep on building, keep on striving, you're still part of the minority. You feel in many places like you're in this paradise, but you are still culturally part of the minority. And it's really important to keep on building your network and reaching out in charity to other people and spreading this good news, this way of life. So
Absolutely, Susie. I'm thinking as you're speaking that for me, I walked into homeschooling again, feeling very much like you said, alone. But as soon as you get onto Facebook and there are these mom groups and you get onto Instagram, there are these resources and curriculums. And I was just thinking, though, when I'm on Facebook and all these great field trips, there's more, Susie, than I can keep up with or ever sign my kids up for, because there is so much available to us in terms of meetups and field trips. However, like you said, it is a self-powered kind of operation that we've got going on. It's the moms who are staying up late and booking these trips and creating flyers that look beautiful and putting them and posting them online. So it really is self-powered. It's us who is putting in the late nights and the early mornings and trying to get this done. And like you said, It's so easy for someone like me to take it, advantage of these things and think that it's just, oh, it's all here for us. But really, it's the moms behind the screens who are working to coordinate and post all of these wonderful things. So I couldn't agree more that we've just got to keep going with it to grow the community.
And sometimes the dads too. Definitely.
Yeah,
Sometimes the dads too. You know what else? You have the opposite problem. There's so much. I've often
so much.
discussed this with people, and I have a lot of clients who have this problem. They're looking for the one best program of the universe, and there are thousands of great programs. And you kind of have to just say, you know what? It's okay to just pick something. It's good, in fact, to pick
Mhm.
something that works for you and stay with it. And don't keep looking for the next best shiny object that someone else
Yeah.
has and think that that's going to be better. Just rest. Rest. I am teaching my grandson, just for an example, who's 11. I'm teaching him writing, and I taught all my children writing. So that's what I do. And I'm enjoying working with my grandson. And anyway, I thought, well, I only have him one day a week instead of every day, so maybe I'll find a book, like a different book. I'll just see if there's a different book out there. So I asked a friend, can you loan me your such and such curriculum? 7 books came landing on my dining room table. I was like, oh, I'm over.
Yes. Yes.
Need, want this enormous pile of books. And I ended up just going back to the book I used for my own
Mhm.
kids. It's 100 years old. It's 100 years old. It's called Intermediate Language Lessons, and my friend Margot Davidson from Hillside Education prints it. And I just said, Margot, can you just give me a new copy of that? I'm just going back to the
I
old
think
book.
that's great. Tried and true. I think that's fantastic. So I have to ask then, Susie, when you
Mhm.
were teaching your own kids, did you have this same philosophy that when you tried a curriculum and it worked, you stuck with it for all of your children?
Yep, I did. Yep.
Wonderful.
I didn't get, yeah, I didn't, if it worked, we used Matthew C, and that worked pretty well. When it didn't work was
My
when I
kids are
pivoted.
using that right now. My two sons are using that right now.
We pivoted when we had to, not just because I was bored or wanted to change things. We pivoted when we had to. When
Hmm.
something didn't work, that's when we pivoted.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about the fact that you had 7 children, this beautiful
Mhm.
big family, and probably you had learners with different styles and different
Yeah.
needs and different strengths? Did you still find that you could use the same curriculum, or did you have to adapt it a little bit or change it for each child?
There were changes. So, yeah, I had to change some things. Okay. So I had one daughter who, when she reached, there are 6 daughters and 1 son, just in case anybody, the son is at the bottom. Okay. By no means least, but definitely
Yes.
last. Um, so my one daughter got to a certain age, and I would call it around 8th grade, where I just couldn't teach her anymore.
Hmm.
She wouldn't let me. And so I ran into, for the first time, this was the first time, she was my 5th child. We won't name names. Anyway, but this was the first time I had ever run into a kid that just didn't cooperate
Hmm.
and let me teach her. And it's okay. I tell everybody this. It really is okay. There is a point where your kids outgrow you, and
Hmm.
they need something else. My other kids who were older reached it a little bit later, but this kid reached it in around 8th grade, and she wasn't rude or anything. She just had her own ideas, and she was really what she really needed. I thought about it was other people, and so I started our co-op just to teach her.
Fantastic.
And it sounds complicated, but we just met in my living room, and I taught public speaking to her and all her friends who were the same age, and then it grew into a bigger co-op with more going on, but it started out just like, I need to be able to teach you.
Yeah,
And you need your
absolutely.
friends, so let's do this. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the beauty of what you said. Like, you could keep the same curriculum for all of your children and use it over the span of your time homeschooling. But when a certain child needed a little something different, you invented it. And I think that that is so Great. You invented this co op, this public speaking class for her and her friends, and that's fabulous. Like you said, I have so many curriculum choices, and I find that a lot of moms who are new to homeschooling and have young children are spending a ton of money because they are buying a curriculum, not happy with it a few months in,
Yeah.
buying something new. And it is, we're always chasing the new shiny object. It's the
Mhm.
FOMO, the fear of missing out, that everyone else has the newest, latest, best curriculum. Everyone's talking about it on Instagram, and we've got to switch. But I think, in a way, the way that things were for you when you started homeschooling could actually have been much better.
Well, even then, so we used to have in-person conferences back then, and I so,
Mm-hmm.
so missed those. They were
Yeah.
so wonderful. And that's where I first met Maureen Whitman, and we hung out and we had tables next to each other and stuff. And those were such joyful events because all the homeschoolers would get together in one place, and then you could see the materials for yourself. You could go to the different vendors, pick up the book, look through the book, and you could know if you liked it and if it was something that you thought it would work for your kids. And so it was a little bit easier to choose your books. But even then, at every one of those live events, there was a room dedicated. I call it the graveyard of buried hopes, dedicated to used curricula. Like everybody else who bought something decided they didn't want it and they were selling it in this room. And, it's
Absolutely.
just a
So
thing.
I think there's a few of those still around. I have to tell you, Susie, not at my parish, but about 25 minutes away where I baptized my sons at St. Rocco's. And they have St. Patrick's looped in with them, another neighboring parish
Beautiful.
that it has a really big homeschooling community. And we have one of those. We had, a few speakers and then all the tables to go up to. And then, like you said, it was like a graveyard of discarded old curriculum and books, and they were all for free. Actually, everybody could just go in and take what had been donated,
Okay.
which was so beautiful. But like you said, it's kind of a lost art to have and to host one of these events when everything is kind of virtual these
Yeah.
days.
I mean, it's easier on me. I used to travel, and, I used to travel relatively locally, and then I did some flyaways, and then I realized I have to stop the flyaways. I
Yep.
can't do it. And so
Yeah.
I don't know one of the things I did as a homeschooler, it sounds like I did a lot, like writing books, giving talks, blah, blah, blah. But I actually, in the whole grand scope of things, there were a lot of things I didn't do. I didn't do them. I said no to them. I stopped
Hmm.
doing them. I stayed home.
Yep.
And so those were fun. And if there's a local one, like I'll go. I'll be all over it.
Yeah.
I'm invited to speak in my own diocese sometime in
Beautiful.
January. And the funny thing is, we have a homeschool group in the diocese. Now, we have one at our parish, which is a Latin Mass parish, which is just chock full of
Mm.
homeschoolers, Fraternity of St. Peter Parish. But there's also a diocesan sponsored, for lack of a better word, homeschool group, and they want me to come speak. That's
Amazing.
completely different than when I started. Definitely, that's new. Okay. When I started, homeschoolers were not really all that appreciated by the more established because the diocese had its own schools and they kind of thought, well, what's wrong with our schools? And you kind of felt like some tension
Yes,
there. And
I
so
understand that.
you definitely had some of that. And there's still some of that out there. It's not completely gone. But in my diocese of Allentown, Pennsylvania, we have a very wonderful situation, and the bishop is very kind, and he offers us our own homeschool mass every year, and like
Oh,
this enormous like support. Like
that
even
is so special. You are
it is.
very, very blessed. You are
Yeah, we
very
are.
lucky to have that. So, what do you think then, Susie, is the reason why over the last 30 years, homeschoolers have been more appreciated and it's more mainstream, it's more understood now? What do you think has changed?
Say that the big change was COVID.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
So
think so
even
too.
well, I would say so. The thing about homeschooling is okay. Or let me go back a little bit. Everything my family did a long time ago was not what normal people did. We had a big family, we homeschooled, and we were traditional Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
That was all just really weird and and not at all like, and we had to explain it to people or not,
Mm-hmm.
and so sometimes
Yeah.
people will say, well, what do you do if people don't agree with blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, wait 10 years.
Yeah.
Just do what you're doing, do it for God, don't do it for yourself or to show off or anything, and accept the loneliness and accept the work. But just what I can see now from my vantage point many years later is all you really have to do is persevere and be patient and wait 10 years and or more. And it's clear that these are fruitful choices to make, and they look like mistakes or something up front, but they're really, it's a calling. Like, if God is asking you to do certain
Yeah.
things, then you just do them and you worry about like what people think or whatever. Just don't worry about that. It'll all
Yeah.
work out. You
I'm
need,
emotional listening to you because it's so funny. You had homeschooled 7 children for 30 years, and here I am, the next generation starting out. And I'm emotional listening to you because I feel exactly the same way you do 30 years later. Like everything you're saying resonates with the new homeschool mom as well. As much as I think, COVID and everybody, a lot of people making a decision in our country to homeschool, it still feels the same in a lot of ways to what you're saying. And so I think there's something so beautiful about kind of this invisible string connecting us all as homeschool moms, our hearts. I still made the decision, just like you said, prayerfully.
yeah.
And I really wasn't sure how I would be accepted by family and friends.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'm not. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I think when it's a calling and an answer to a prayer, you keep going. And it has been so fruitful for my family, for my marriage, for my children who are thriving, that it's okay if people still don't understand. At Franciscan University in Steubenville, students live the truth of the gospel in a vibrant Catholic community that unites faith and reason in every major. 20% of Franciscan students come from a homeschool background. Plus, high school juniors and seniors can earn college credit through Franciscan's dual enrollment. Learn more at franciscan.edu.
It is okay. And you really don't, probably you shouldn't argue with them because
Yeah,
it's better. To just live your life.
yeah.
I have a
I
funny
think,
story.
tell me, I want to hear.
Okay, I have a funny story. So my son-in-law Frank is an attorney, and he was part of a community, a young professionals community locally. Okay, and they had a series on education that they were sponsoring, and they had people come in from different schools to explain the Catholic school, the charter school, the public
Mm,
school,
yep.
all these different schools. And he said, we need a homeschooler. Will you come and speak to my group? And I said, yes, I will come and speak to your group. We will have a Q&A. And I didn't really have a talk planned. All I had was a tiny little intro, and then let you can ask me anything you want. That was my thing. So I just stood up there and let them ask me anything I wanted. And I have to admit, some of it I knew was going to be super easy because they were going to say stuff like, "Well, what about home socialization?"
Yes, yes.
Gee, I never heard that one before. What do I?
Yep.
But I really connected with them, with some of them. It was a large group of people,
Mhm,
most of them liberal. Okay.
mhm.
There was one point where I said to myself, okay, I'm going to explain homeschooling in terms that they will understand, and going to explain the facts. Like, yes, most of us are religious. You don't have to be religious.
Yeah,
Most of us are.
yep,
How I didn't apologize. I just told them this is what built the movement.
yep.
But it really emphasized freedom,
Mm,
the fact that you know your kids better than anybody, and that if you send them away all day long with other people, then you are going to um, have someone that you don't really know in some
yeah,
way. They're going to
mhm,
be, and and I also explained rights and duties. So
tell
we have
me.
a right to homeschool because we have a
Yes,
duty to make sure our children get the best education that we think that they should have, and they go together. And so it was more like a philosophy explanation, a philosophical one than a religious one. Okay,
mhm,
and I don't anyway. And at the end, my this woman came up to my son-in-law and she said, "I love your mother-in-law, and
Oh,
she's changed my mind." And I was like,
wow. Incredible. That is so incredible. It's funny you say that too, because I have found, and again, I'm in New York, so a lot of New Yorkers don't feel similar to me in terms of homeschooling or faith. A lot of us do, though. A lot of us do. Maybe a lot of us are just not making the leap to homeschool, even though I think a lot of parents do have it on their hearts. But for a lot of friends and family who felt that what I was doing was really weird, the proof is in the pudding when you meet my children. When you meet them, they are outgoing and they are vibrant. They have a lot to say. They're
yeah.
athletic and they're smart, and there is no lack of socialization or conversation or really anything. It really is just the opposite. And so I think a lot of people's minds are very quickly changed when they hear our perspective, or especially when they get to meet all of our homeschooled children.
That is why I say wait 10 years.
Yeah.
That's definitely it. And that's what attracted me to homeschooling in the first place. I knew a few older homeschoolers whose kids I really liked who were teenagers, and I was like, aha.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I aspire to have those type of that type of children, those types of children, whatever I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I really can share that sentiment because I meet children at the co-op that my children attend, and I think to myself, these are the kids that I would want my children to be around and
Yeah.
to be socializing with and having fun with and getting to know, because I can tell by the way that they speak and behave that their values are closely aligned with ours, and they're going to be a great influence on my child.
And our children, my own children, not me, but my own children, they have lifelong friends. They have friends who were in their wedding that they were friends
Yes.
with when they were 5. They have friends who are their children's godparents who they knew when they were
Mm,
5. And so
so
they've
special.
got some quality friends. And another thing people think about homeschoolers is that they're weird, that they're
Yeah.
nerdy. Well, yes, they
Yeah.
are. I'm not going to say they're not. They are. They are. And my one daughter was so funny when she was a teenager. My second daughter, she said, "What? All these kids in her homeschool co-op were trying to be cool or whatever." And she's like, "What are they trying to be cool for?" She's like, "We're homeschoolers. We're
I
nerds."
love that. I love that. And you know what, Susie? It's so funny because people think that the only way that you could be nerdy or studious or something is if you're homeschooled. But there are kids in public school that would follow the same personality patterns. And there are kids who
Yes.
are shy and quiet who are in public school. There are kids who are athletic that are in public school and homeschooled. So it's really funny when people just assume that the only way you'd be, say, quote unquote nerdy or athletic is depending on where you go to school, which is just so untrue.
No, no. In fact, what will happen is they will be tortured.
Yeah,
The kids
yeah.
who are different, who go to school, are tortured.
I
They are.
explain
And
that to my sons. Yeah, I try to
yeah.
explain that to him because they've never had a public school experience. And I always tell them the way that it is at your co-op, where all of the kids, despite being somewhat different from each other, how they're so kind to each other and there's no making fun of each other, there's no bullying. It's not like that when you go
Yeah.
to another school.
Yeah, I can tell you that I was bullied in a Catholic school for 3 solid years.
I'm
And,
sorry to hear that.
yes, it was very tough at the time, but I was pretty scrappy.
Yeah, thick skin to it. No, that's good.
Well, I'm pretty thin-skinned as a rule, but I've grown a thicker one over the years. But anyway, it was tough, but it really planted the seeds of homeschooling in my mind
Mhm.
because there were no other alternatives back then. And so you had to kind of go to school somewhere. I actually found the public school to be a lot more fun because there were things for us nerds to do, like theater. I'm into theater and
Yeah.
singing and stuff like that, and Latin club and all the nerdy stuff, and not so much volleyball and things like that.
Mhm.
But so I would say it planted the seeds, and I just said to
Yeah.
myself, I'm not gonna let my kids live that way. And I
Yeah.
don't think, and this is what I told my son-in-law's group, I don't think if you yourself, for all of you who think bullying builds character, let's just pretend
Mm.
you go to work every day, and someone has turned your desk over, someone is calling you names, someone is just, you're not going to want to stay at that job.
No, and you couldn't be productive to get your tasks done in a day.
You're not going to want to stay at that job. You're not going to tell yourself it builds character and just
Hmm.
white knuckle it. You're going to get out. And
Yeah.
so you realize try to realize what's happening to the people who are subjected to that, who are kind of helpless because they're children.
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Absolutely, Susie. And I taught public school, and I always remember saying to the parents that my number one goal was that my students felt safe and happy in my classroom because I didn't think that anything productive could build,
Yes.
within them or within the classroom without that feeling. So if you were worried about who's going to scribble on your paper or who is going to
Mhm.
pull your hair at recess, there is no learning multiplication tables. There is no
So true.
reading on a higher level.
Yeah.
None of that can happen until kids feel really safe, appreciated, and loved in the environment that they're in. So I couldn't agree more with you. I
You
couldn't agree
know,
more.
our class was so bad that the nun had a nervous breakdown, okay, and left in the middle of the year. Okay,
Oh my goodness.
that's how bad it was. And so I'm laughing about it, but it was so bad that that's what
Yeah,
happened. So
I understand. I understand. Susie, it sounds like you've made so many decisions along the years, along the way over the years for your children that you're just so prideful about and so happy about, and how it's been so fruitful, this journey for you with homeschooling your seven children. If you were to start out today, or if I could wave a magic wand and you got to do this all over again, what would you do differently and what would you keep exactly the same?
okay, so what I would do differently is I wouldn't I wouldn't make it about me.
Hmm.
Um, so you think you're carrying this yourself and you're all wrapped up in it and outcomes and everything like that, and you're trying to sort of fit the school model onto your homeschool. So you're trying to do everything like, we're doing this from 10 to 11, we're doing that from 11 to 12, and then we're going to go out and run around and have recess good and properly, and then we're going to come back in at 1 o'clock, and then we're going to do that for another hour. And it's like, that is the what the schools have to do to keep order with a lot of people. And so I would continue to have a basic order, like we're going to start by 9 o'clock, we're going to say the rosary, we're going to read aloud. I would do all that the same. Those things really worked well for us and they kept us structured. But I wouldn't overthink it and try to put the wrong model onto a homeschool, and I wouldn't lose my temper if things didn't go the way I wanted. When you're first homeschooling, you think, I'm teaching you something and now you repeat it and you should know it. And it's like, no. You are battling the darkening of the intellect, the weakness of the will, the tendency to sin in your kids and yourself.
Yeah.
Plus sickness, right? Which we all have the
Hmm.
proclivity for. You might feel really low one day, your hormones might be bouncing all over the place.
Yep.
And so you're battling the human condition, okay? And you need to account for that. You can't just go, I'm going to sit down and we're going to just do this and then expect it to go really well. It's like, actually, pray.
Mm.
When I started saying the rosary in the morning, my temper problem went away.
Wow, that's
It went away.
beautiful.
It was like, why aren't you learning this? Ah! And then it was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I'm putting the cart before the horse. God has to be first. I have to beg for this grace. And then we all do it together. And then one thing we did really, really right, besides the rosary in the morning, because I'm too tired for it at night. That's another reason we did it in the morning. It was like, I'm just going to kill everybody at night. We're not going to do this at night. Hey, Elmer, I'm going to kill you. So had to be in the morning when we were fresh, but we also read aloud. And reading aloud all the years, I have a comprehensive list I'm making of all the wonderful stuff we did.
Mm.
That was, if I had to say, the single most unifying thing we did as a family. We prayed and then we read. And so how that worked was having this great disparity of ages. So my oldest child was 17 when my youngest was born. So you
Mm-hmm.
have this huge disparity of ages, okay? what is the one thing everybody shared? What we did, what we read together. And so we've all read, and if I read it to the first half of the family, then I read it again to the second half of the family. So we all share the James Herriot books, All Creatures Great and Small. We all share those. We all share the Little House books. We all share the Narnia books. We all
Mm,
share
yes.
With God in Russia by Father Walter Chiswick, one of our favorite books of all time. And we all share so many things that we studied together. And and so we have a common education amongst our family that way. And then later they all
Mhm.
went to liberal arts colleges, and so they thank God we share that too. But we didn't do it together, but we did it. And so that was really important, especially when kids were all going off and doing different things. I had
Yes.
somebody in high school and they were doing online classes in science or whatever, and then I had somebody else that was little and needed to me to sit down with them, and we just to get us all together, that reading. And we're
I
very
think so
dramatic, so
too.
it was fun. And we discussed everything,
Yes.
and yeah, we didn't just, it wasn't flat. It was fun.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
feel the same way about my sons now, how prayer and definitely reading books that they can both benefit from and enjoy is something so unifying for us. And I just have to say, you gave us so much information and so many great ideas in what you just said, but you spoke to a little bit about being, that feeling of being overwhelmed and losing your temper. And that is what's going on in my text thread right now. It's all
Oh.
of my homeschooling friends saying, "Oh, my younger little guy interrupted me teaching my eldest daughter and I kind of lost it." Or, this happened, someone didn't want to work and I lost my temper. I think there's a misconception that us homeschooling moms are more patient than the average woman, or that we somehow have these, I don't know, superhuman abilities to stay calm. And I think it really is, just like you said, such an honest and humble reflection to say, we feel the same way as any other mom would, especially being overwhelmed and overstimulated with a bunch of kids running around. But it really is the power of turning to prayer and being so grateful for the season of life that we're in.
Yeah, and that's where saying no to things comes in because, you know, it's so hard to kind of herd them all in. And then if you're gone and you're not home or you're distracted, then you're going to find it very hard to piece together school. Like you can't really go out, I think, for in the morning and then come back and expect to start. By then you kind of need to guard your precious Mondays and Tuesdays and don't take phone calls and like you have to
Yeah.
let your network, your family know like really I need to stay focused here. And a lot of it is just kind of like canceling out whatever is going to, you have to try to communicate to your friends and relatives that it's like we're in school or I'm at work. I
Right.
can't stop, and
Mm-hmm.
because you have to get it while you can. We would did a lot during the baby's nap time because the baby, you got to do it when they're napping. Or I remember when my other kids were in a co-op and I had my youngest and he wasn't in it. That's when I taught him to read. While
Definitely.
they were in the co-op, we sat in the car or we sat on a park bench, and I'm like, all right, they're not here. It's me and you. We're going to use this time where I'm waiting for them, and I'm going to teach you to read right here. And if you have a temper problem, here's a hot tip, because I'm the queen of temper problems.
Let's
Um,
hear it.
take your kids outside and teach them,
Mm-hmm.
or take them
Yeah.
somewhere public and teach them.
Yep.
Because then you can't do that. You have to find train yourself to find creative ways to get it to discipline them and get it to happen without reverting to that. And
I
that's a
think
good
that's a
way to
great tip.
train yourself out of the bad habit. So,
It's a great tip.
yeah, we're not very patient and we grow in patience. We grow
Yeah.
in
I
patience.
always say that God uses our homeschooling journey for us to mold and to educate our children and let them grow in faith. But it is just as much, the journey is just as much working on us moms and dads as we navigate homeschooling as well.
Yes, definitely.
Susie, before we wrap things up, I've got to hear, you are so full of good stories. I feel like maybe I can call you later. I want to hear more because you got good stuff. But I want to hear the story of your graduation. You shared it with me just a little bit, and I'm excited to hear it. And I know you want to share it with our listeners too.
Oh, okay. Well, so I'm not retired, okay? I'm calling it graduation because I'm still helping out with my grandchildren, different families, and I still want to. I'm still helping out at the co-op. My daughter is running it now. And so I don't want to retire, okay? I would rather do what I can to keep on serving in the way that I know how. So I'm calling it graduation. So for every one of my kids, I had a graduation mass and party. And I was thinking, what do I do when I'm done? I was going to go on a pilgrimage. I was going to go to St. Anne de Beaupré in Canada because she's my patron saint after all these years. So I took St. Anne long ago because I had daughters, and she had a daughter who turned out pretty good, pretty well. And I thought, well, maybe she can help me. So she's been my patron saint all these years of homeschooling. And I was going to go to St. Anne de Beaupré, but for many reasons that I won't bore you with, it didn't work out. I made many attempts and it just didn't work out. And then our parish priest said, oh, we have a relic of St. Anne at our parish. And I was like, we do? Like, she came to me? And so I was like, well, we were going to have, my kids wanted to throw me a big party. They wanted to have like a roast. They were going to roast me.
That sounds hilarious. That sounds really fun.
But you know what? What happened was we all got sick. We all got sick and we couldn't do it. And so we ended up rescheduling it on the day before my daughter's wedding so that we were all home for the wedding. Okay. Everybody was home. The ones who are out of town were home. And we ended up just having a mass and the blessing of the relic of St. Anne, just our family, and we sang. So we sang two things. Now I'm going to cry. Stop, stop, stop. We sang.
No, we like that here. Go for it. You'll make me cry too. Keep going. I want to hear.
So we all sang "O God Beyond All Praising," which is a Te Deum. And because we all sing, we're all in this long choir that started out very, very humble and turned into a wonderful Renaissance polyphonic choir. That's another thing. And we were all in it. The kids all grew up in it. And we all sang Bohorodice by Rachmaninoff, which is the Old Slavonic Hail Mary. Because we spent many years going to the Divine Liturgy. And so it was incredibly special. I have a picture to share with you. And it's all I wanted. It turns out to be all I wanted. And let me see if I can share really quick a picture of them when at the graduation, just the originals. Can you see that?
I can't, but we can try to share it through our social media
We'll do.
and let our listeners look at it after. Absolutely.
Okay, then I'll put that away. So anyway, we
You were just saying that you guys went to the mass, you sang the two songs because that was part of your, homeschooling too, that you had created this choir and you had left off there with the singing.
yeah, we did. I failed to mention that my daughter was in Rome at the time and she was going to a certain place she couldn't afford to go to. And I said, listen, how much is it? Turned out to be $40. I'm like, $40? I'll send you the $40. I said, go to this place. It was Orvieto, and do me a favor and pray that I will know what to do for graduation, what I should do. Should I go to St. Anne de Beaupré? Should I have a big party? What should I do? And when she went, I woke up that morning when she was there at the exact time, and there's a Eucharistic miracle there and everything. And St. Thomas Aquinas' chair and the crucifix that spoke to him is there. It was like an amazing little pilgrimage she made for me with my intention. And I woke up and I knew exactly what I wanted, which was that mass with all my children there and the blessing with the relic. And that's it. That's all I wanted.
That's so
It was
powerful.
amazing. Yeah.
So amazing. I think it is just not coincidence that you guys all got sick. It wasn't coincidence that everyone was together for the wedding. It was not coincidence that you were able to send your daughter, help pay for the expense of paying for her on this pilgrimage. I think the Lord knows our hearts and knows what our deepest desires and finds a way to fulfill it for us. And so I think that's a really beautiful story.
Thanks.
Really beautiful. Susie, I've had so much fun talking to you today. You are known for your humor and your honesty and your practical wisdom. You've given it to us today for sure. And if you want to find Susie and find more of her work, she's got free articles, affordable resources. You can head over to susielloyd.com. I'm going to link all of that great stuff in the show notes for you if you enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure you did. It was such a blessing. Thank you, Susie.
Thanks for having me on, Kaitlin.
So much fun. This isn't the end of the conversation. I want to hear from you. Come say hi on Instagram, connect with me on Facebook, or leave a comment below. I want to know what today's conversation sparked in you. I read and respond to every message. Until next time, remember, you got this.